Okay, let's dive into serpentine soil today.
Mm,
We're talking about really one of Earth's ultimate survival challenges, wouldn't you say?
absolutely. It's this type of soil that's just incredibly hostile to, well, most standard plant life.
It really feels like a geological paradox. How can something so, poor as a growing medium end up producing such unique biological diversity?
That's precisely the fascinating question. Serpentine soil, well, it comes from the weathering of these deep earth, ultramafic rocks, think peridotite, which often gets altered into serpentinite.
Right, the source material itself is unusual.
Exactly. And because of that origin, it's chemically toxic, it's starved of nutrients, and yet somehow these incredible evolutionary islands emerge.
So if it's so challenging, what's the very first roadblock a typical plant runs into when it tries to grow there?
Well, physically, just setting down roots is tough. It's often shallow, very rocky, easily eroded, and it usually lacks that dark, rich organic matter you associate with healthy soil.
Mhm.
But honestly, the real killer, the main problem is the chemistry. It's like a three-part assault that takes out most plants pretty quickly.
Okay, lay it out for us. What are these chemical constraints?
So first, there's a severe lack of essential nutrients. We're talking drastically low levels of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, the basic building blocks.
NPK basics.
Right. Second, it's loaded with toxic heavy metals, really high concentrations, especially chromium, cobalt, and nickel.
Wow.
And it's important to mention here, the serpentine minerals themselves include things like chrysotile.
Which is white asbestos, right?
Correct. So if you're working with crushed serpentine material, you really need to take proper safety precautions. Serious stuff.
Okay, so nutrient starvation, metal poisoning.
Mm-hmm.
What's the third part of this chemical attack?
The third one is maybe the most insidious. It's a severely low calcium to magnesium ratio.
Why is that specific ratio so critical?
Well, plants absolutely need calcium for building healthy cell walls, particularly in new growth like root tips. But when there's way too much magnesium floating around, it actually physically blocks the plant's uptake mechanisms for calcium. It essentially jams the system.
Wow, so it's like sabotage at the cellular level. The plant can't build itself properly.
Precisely. Root growth just stalls, nutrient uptake is hampered, and the plant struggles, often fatally.
That's a fantastic explanation. It's not just a lack of food, it's physiological interference. Now, since this chemistry is tied to specific rock types, where do we actually find these hostile patches? Are they common?
They're found globally. Actually, you see serpentine outcrops in places like the Balkan Peninsula, Cuba, New Caledonia. But interestingly, California holds the vast majority of North America's serpentine soils.
So California is a real hotspot for this.
A major hotspot, yes. And these areas act like literal islands, driving intense evolutionary pressure.
And that pressure forces specialization, which explains why we see this, well, sparse but really unique biology, right?
Exactly that. Compared to adjacent land with normal soil, the productivity is really low. But the flip side is this incredibly high rate of endemism.
Endemism meaning species found nowhere else.
Correct. In California, something like 45% of the plant species associated with serpentine areas are considered rare or endangered, specifically because they only live there. They can't survive anywhere else.
And you can often see the adaptations, right? They look different.
You definitely can. Often they exhibit stunted growth, a sort of dwarfism, and many have these dull, waxy, often gray-green leaves. Think of the serpentine buckwheat, Eriogonum libertini, that helps manage water loss and reflect some of that harsh sunlight.
So they've evolved ways to cope. But how do they deal with those toxic heavy metals we talked about? Some plants actually accumulate them, don't they?
They do. It's amazing. They have these specialized survival mechanisms. Some are called hyperaccumulators. A good example is Nokia fenleri.
Nokia fenleri. What does it do?
It doesn't just tolerate nickel, it actively absorbs large amounts of it from the soil.
Wow.
And then it stores the nickel safely away, often in cell vacuoles, basically keeping it out of the way of the plant's essential metabolic processes.
That idea of a plant essentially managing, almost weaponizing heavy metals is incredible. And these hostile soil patches can actually shape entire landscapes, right? Creating these things called serpentine barrens.
Oh, absolutely. A great example is the Soldier's Delight Natural Environment Area in Maryland. It's nearly 2,000 acres.
Okay.
And the climate there should support a dense forest, like the surrounding areas. But the shallow, toxic serpentine soil just overrides the climate factor. It forces the landscape to remain as this unique grassland or savanna ecosystem, not forest.
It's like the soil dictates the whole ecosystem type, regardless of rainfall or temperature. Fascinating. So bring this back to us. What does this specialized survival toolkit mean in practical terms? That ability to soak up heavy metals sounds potentially useful.
It is incredibly useful. We actually harness these plants in a process called phytoremediation.
Phytoremediation, like plant-based cleanup.
Exactly. It's a type of bioremediation. We intentionally plant these hyperaccumulators in soils polluted with heavy metals, perhaps from industrial sites, and let them naturally extract the contaminants.
That's a fantastic green solution. But it does raise one final, maybe slightly concerning point about land use. What happens if we try to make serpentine land usable for other things, like, say, agriculture?
That's a very relevant question. You can amend the soil, for instance. Adding gypsum helps improve that crucial calcium to magnesium ratio, making it possible for grazing animals.
Okay, so you can fix it to some extent.
To some extent, yes. But, and this is important, studies looking at cattle that grazed on these amended serpentine areas found something worrying.
What was that?
The cattle showed potentially toxic levels of nickel and copper accumulating in their tissues.
Ah, so the metals are still getting into the food chain.
It seems so, which raises serious questions about bioaccumulation and potential negative impacts on human health if consuming meat from animals grazed there. It definitely warrants more research.
Right, so the ultimate lesson here seems to be about the power, but also the vulnerability of extreme specialization. These isolated patches of serpentine soil limit gene flow between plant populations.
Driving speciation.
Driving speciation, creating these unique endemic species. But that very isolation, that specialization that lets them survive the soil, makes them incredibly vulnerable if their specific environmental conditions change, doesn't it?
It's a classic evolutionary double-edged sword. Highly adapted, but potentially fragile in the face of rapid change.